Hi, I'm Vicki Herbster. I'm a member of Dr. Moody's Utilization of Technology class at Fort Hays State University, AEP800. This is my presentation about critical thinking. Critical thinking is the mental process to solve a problem. It includes synthesizing, self-discipline, inferring, interpreting, evaluating, analyzing, and explaining. From a flashlight that doesn't work to solving our economic crisis, work that is still needed there, the critical thinking process is employed. The critical thinking process must begin with metacognition, which is thinking about one's own mental processes. The student must engage in the process of conscious thinking and awareness in order for critical thinking and problem-solving processes to take place. This process should be encouraged in all areas of life. This is one that I find is the most difficult with students, as they're always thinking about something else rather than what's going on in the classroom. Why think critically? Why now especially? Students in the Kansas schools, and others for that matter, over the past decade have been prepared for the state assessments because of NCLB. Knowledge that is highly content-based, using lower-level thinking skills, is employed on these tests, which means that Bloom's higher levels aren't being addressed, higher-level questioning skills aren't being addressed. Global competition, college readiness, ACT and SAT preparedness, a desire to become more educated, and the ability to affect change are all driving the desire for engagement and employing higher-order thinking skills. Steve Jobs and the Apple team used their skills in their advertising and innovation in the late 90s, and at the same time featured others who did the same thing in the video below.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
I appreciate that video and the innovations and the thinking that Steve Jobs employed to change our world. The critical thinking process I like to use and to refer to with my students, because I am a science teacher, is that of the scientific method process. It's basically the investigate, reason, review, and analyze model, just broken down even further. I ask my students to make observations, to watch the world around them, and to look for the problems that might need answering or thinking about. Then they're to ask questions about that observation, questions that are relevant, questions that can be answered. And then they rely on prior knowledge, whether that's prior knowledge from our classroom, from a previous year's time, from research that they've done on the internet or in the media center. But they have to draw on that prior knowledge in order to make educated, logical decisions and hypothesis. They then form the hypothesis and design a potential solution. Once that design has been completed, then they carry out that design or the experiment. Then they analyze the results and draw conclusions from those results. The conclusions should state whether or not their hypothesis was answered, whether or not they came up with the correct result, or whether they need to revisit the whole entire process. So they, at that point, evaluate the process and repeat it if necessary. So what is the educator's role in the critical thinking process? I believe we are all educators in the lives of students and children, as they are constantly observing adults and honestly looking for direction. We must ask essential questions and engage students and incite their desire to think critically. Students would be more interested in talking about fetal alcohol syndrome as a way of discussing cell membrane transport rather than looking at a meaningless PowerPoint of terms and definitions. They'd rather discuss stem cells when introducing the cell unit or solve a mysterious disease in the bacteria and virus units. All of these would encourage and engage our students and develop that metacognition that we're looking for. Teachers must also model this process. They should speak out loud and employ this process even in the smallest tasks. Goal setting is important, and self-efficacy, which would provide direction and confidence. Aiding the students in recognizing and using their previous experience is also a strategy that should be employed in the problem-solving process. Finally, it's important to provide the opportunities and the tools that will help develop the thinking process necessary. I find my students are most engaged when I provide them with the project guidelines, rubric, background knowledge, technology, and time. I then just facilitate and guide their thinking process. As an educator, we are trained to have additional tools and scaffolds to support the process. The one I refer to most often is Bloom's. We have a great model similar to Bloom's wheel used in our school that offers the verbs that relate to the higher levels of thinking and also ideas of how to implement them. Finally, success isn't achieved with correct answers and results. Success isn't final in the process. The process is ongoing. Winston Churchill says, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Thanks.